My ordinary life as a hotel maid shattered the moment I answered a phone call in Russian, right in front of the city's most dangerous man. The scent of harsh cleaning chemicals clung to my skin, a constant reminder of my endless shifts, no matter how many times I scrubbed. Tonight, standing in the opulent employee bathroom of the Sovereign Hotel, the city's pinnacle of luxury, my reflection showed tired eyes and a tight bun that perpetually throbbed. 6 months of relentless double shifts had etched their toll. "Sonia, you're needed on the 14th floor," Mrs. Reynolds, head of housekeeping, mumbled, eyes fixed on her clipboard. "The Imperial Suite requires turn-down service. And for goodness sake, straighten your uniform. We uphold standards here." I smoothed the creases from my outdated black and white maid's outfit, a uniform designed to render us invisible yet simultaneously mark us as servants. The Sovereign catered to the ultra-rich, those who craved human service but recoiled from acknowledging our shared humanity. "Yes, I responded, gathering my cart laden with fine Egyptian cotton sheets and expensive chocolates. The service elevator ascended, its quiet hum carrying me to the 14th floor. This Imperial Suite, I knew, cost more for one night than I earned in 3 months. I'd only seen it once, during a deep clean when it was vacant. Tonight, a guest of such significance occupied it that additional security patrolled the hallway. I wheeled my cart past a broad-shouldered man in a dark suit, his earpiece and impassive expression signaling private security, not hotel staff. He gave me a quick, dismissive glance before resuming his rigid post by the elevator. My hands trembled as I gently rapped on the enormous double doors. "Housekeeping," I announced, my voice barely a whisper. No reply. I knocked again, louder this time. "Turn down service, housekeeping." Still silence. Following protocol, I was authorized to use my key card after 2 unanswered knocks, provided the service light was illuminated. The small green indicator by the door confirmed it was. The suite remained silent as I entered, pushing my cart ahead of me. "Hello, housekeeping," I called out, my voice echoing through the marble entryway into the vast expanse beyond. The Imperial Suite truly was a palace suspended in the sky. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering city below. Furniture that cost more than luxury cars and artwork worthy of museums, not hotel rooms. I moved softly, assuming the guest was out for dinner. In the master bedroom, I began my routine, turning down the grand bed, placing chocolates on pillows, and drawing the blackout curtains halfway. The bathroom needed fresh towels. I worked quickly, eager to finish before the guest returned. That's when I heard it. The soft clink of ice in a glass. I froze, towels clutched to my chest. A man sat in the shadowy corner of the bedroom lounge, partially hidden by a huge leather chair. I hadn't seen him when I came in. He must have been there in the dark, watching me the entire time. "I am so sorry to bother you, sir. I can return later," I stammered, backing towards the door. "Stay." A single word, spoken softly, yet with undeniable authority. He leaned forward slightly, and the city lights illuminated his face. My breath caught. He appeared to be around 40, with a face that commanded immediate attention, a strong jawline covered in precise stubble, eyes so dark they seemed black in the dim light, and an expression of absolute control. His suit was clearly custom-made, accentuating his broad shoulders and trim waist. "Finish your work," he said, his accent subtle but distinct. "Eastern European, perhaps Russian. I will not interrupt." I nodded, turning back to the bathroom, my heart pounding against my ribs. Something about him radiated danger, not the obvious kind like the guards outside, but something deeper, more primal. He was the sort of man who didn't need to raise his voice to instill fear. I worked rapidly, intensely aware of his presence. When I returned to the bedroom, he was speaking quietly on his phone. I tried to make myself invisible as I completed the bed service. His gaze followed my every movement around the room. Not with the entitled lust or bored dismissal common among wealthy men towards female staff, but with careful assessment, as if cataloguing every detail of my appearance and actions. My phone vibrated in my pocket once, twice, then a third time. Someone was calling, not just texting. I ignored it, knowing that using personal phones during service was strictly forbidden. But as I turned to leave, it vibrated again, the insistent buzz of an incoming call. The man raised an eyebrow, his dark stare settling on my uniform pocket. You should answer that. It might be important. I'm not permitted to take personal calls during service, sir. I insist. His tone left no room for refusal. Nervously, I pulled out my phone. The screen displayed my younger sister's name, Anya. A cold dread settled in my stomach. She never called while I was working unless it was an emergency. Excuse me, I whispered, stepping towards the door for privacy. But before I could move away, I accepted the call. Anya, what's wrong? My sister's voice came through, rapid and panicked. Yane mogu nati mishu. Where are you? I can't find Misha. He didn't come home from school. Without thinking, I replied in our native tongue, Russian words spilling out automatically in my distress. Calm down. Did you call the police? I felt it instantly, a profound shift in the room's energy. The man had become utterly still, his attention fixed on me with a predatory intensity. Ya's Vonilla. Yes. They said he needs to be missing for more than 24 hours. I'll be home as soon as I can. Don't worry, we'll find him. I switched back to English, suddenly acutely aware of my mistake. Speaking Russian in America wasn't a crime, but in this city, with certain individuals, it carried weighty implications. I ended the call and turned to find the man standing now, his imposing height making me instinctively step back. My apologies, sir. Family emergency, I explained, desperate to escape. Your Russian is excellent. His voice had subtly changed, carrying an edge I couldn't quite place. Native speaker. Yes, I grew up speaking it at home with my family. We immigrated when I was young. I was babbling, something in his expression unnerving me. What's your name? He moved closer, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something darker, whiskey and cigarettes. Sonia. I hesitated before adding, Sonia Petrova. Petrova, he repeated, as if testing the name. And where are you from originally? Sonia Petrova. A small town outside of St. Petersburg. I gripped my cart handle, ready to flee. I really must go. My nephew is missing. How old is your nephew? The question seemed oddly sincere, his brow furrowing slightly. 8. My voice cracked. He's only 8. Something shifted in his expression, a flash of almost compassion before his features hardened again. He reached into his jacket pocket, withdrawing a sleek leather wallet. Before I could protest, he pulled out several $100 bills. Take this. Use it to find your nephew. He extended the money towards me. I shook my head. I can't accept that, sir. Take it, he insisted, stepping closer until I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Consider it a tip for your discretion. The unspoken threat in his words was unmistakable. I accepted the money with trembling fingers. Thank you, I whispered, tucking it into my pocket. What's your nephew's name? He asked, his eyes never leaving mine. Misha Mikhail. He nodded once, then turned away, effectively dismissing me. Good luck finding him, Sonia Petrova. I fled the suite, the weight of his gaze pursuing me. Only when the elevator doors closed did I finally allow myself to breathe. The encounter left me profoundly unsettled, as if I'd inadvertently stumbled into a dangerous undercurrent flowing beneath my ordinary existence. By the time I clocked out, it was almost midnight. Mrs. Reynolds intercepted me at the employee exit. Sonia, a guest from the Imperial Suite, called down. He's specifically requested you for service tomorrow morning. My blood ran cold. Did he say why? She shook her head. The wealthy never explain themselves. Just be here at 9 a.m. sharp. She narrowed her eyes. Whatever you did to impress him, keep doing it. We need his continued business. I nodded robotically, pushing through the door into the cool night air. My apartment was a 30-minute bus ride away, in a neighborhood that had seen better days, but it was all I could afford while supporting Anna through nursing school and helping with Misha. The apartment was dark when I arrived, save for the television's blue glow. Anya sat on our worn couch, her eyes red from crying. Sonia. She jumped up and hugged me fiercely. He came home about an hour after I called you. He was at his friend's house and lost track of time. I'm so sorry I worried you. Relief washed over me like a cleansing wave. Thank God, I murmured, collapsing onto the couch. Where is he now? Sleeping, she replied, sitting beside me, tucking her legs beneath her. You look awful. Did something happen at work? I considered telling her about the strange encounter, about the man's reaction to hearing Russian, about the money still burning a hole in my pocket. But Anya had enough worries. Nothing important, I lied. Just a long day. That night, I dreamed of dark eyes watching me from the shadows. I woke several times, heart pounding, convinced someone was in my room. By dawn, I abandoned sleep, sitting by the window, watching the city awaken. My phone chimed with a text message. Unknown number. Good morning, Sonia Petrova. I'm glad to hear your nephew returned home safely. I stared at the screen in disbelief. How did he know? How did he get my number? The phone chimed again. Unknown number. I look forward to seeing you at 9 a.m. Don't be late. I dropped the phone as if it had scorched me. The feeling of being ensnared, of having accidentally stepped into something far beyond my comprehension, intensified. But what choice did I have? I needed this job, needed the stable income it provided. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across my small bedroom, I couldn't shake the conviction that my life had irrevocably altered the moment I'd answered that phone call in Russian. The morning commute felt different, as though the city itself had transformed overnight. Every face on the bus seemed suspicious, every glance in my direction loaded with hidden meaning. I clutched my bag tighter, the stranger's text messages still vivid in my mind. The Sovereign Hotel's employee entrance was hidden in an alley, designed to keep us invisible to guests. I scanned my ID card and hurried through the utilitarian corridors to the locker room, changing into my freshly pressed uniform with automatic movements. There she is, the chosen one. Maria, another housekeeper, approached with an exaggerated bow. Words already spread that you've been personally requested by the man in the Imperial Suite. I forced a smile. It's nothing. I just handled the turn-down service last night. Nothing. She raised an eyebrow. Sonia, do you have any idea who he is? The question sent a chill down my spine. Should I? Maria leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. They say he's Alexi Volkov. The name meant nothing to me, and I shrugged. You truly don't know? She looked incredulous. Volkov is practically a ghost, a name whispered in certain circles. Some sort of import-export magnate. But the rumors. She trailed off, glancing over her shoulder. Just be careful. Men like that don't notice women like us unless they want something. Mrs. Reynolds appeared at the door, clipboard in hand. Petrova, you're due upstairs in 15 minutes, and management wants to see you first. My stomach plummeted. Had I done something wrong? Was I about to be fired? The hotel manager's office was lavish compared to the stark employee areas. Mr. Harrington, a thin man with perfectly coiffed silver hair and the permanent expression of someone who just smelled something unpleasant, greeted me. Ah, Petrova. He didn't invite me to sit. I understand you made quite an impression on our guest in the Imperial Suite. Sir, I simply performed my duties as usual. He waved away my explanation. Whatever you did, continue doing it. Mr. Volkov has not only requested you specifically but has also extended his stay indefinitely. He fixed me with a cold stare. Do you grasp what I'm saying? I swallowed hard. I think so. Let me be perfectly clear. Mr. Volkov's continued patronage is worth many times your annual salary. Ensure he remains satisfied with the service. The implication in his tone made my skin crawl. Sir, that will be all, Petrova. Don't keep him waiting. Dismissed. I made my way to the service elevator, my thoughts racing. The manager's veiled suggestion sickened me. Was that the true nature of this? Had the enigmatic Mr. Volkov requested me for reasons unrelated to housekeeping? The same security guard stood outside the elevator on the 14th floor, but today he seemed to recognize me, nodding slightly as I approached with my cart. He's expecting you, he said, his American accent thick against the corridor's silence. He said to send you in immediately. I knocked anyway, clinging to the protocol that had governed my work for years. Enter, came the reply, that same commanding tone from the previous night. The Imperial Suite looked different in daylight. Sunlight streamed through the enormous windows, illuminating the opulence I'd only glimpsed in shadow. Fresh flowers had appeared overnight, their scent mingling with coffee and something delicious, pastries, perhaps. Alexi Volkov stood by the windows, his back to me. Even in profile, he commanded attention, broad-shouldered in a charcoal suit that likely cost more than my yearly rent. Dark hair swept back from his forehead. He turned as I entered, those penetrating eyes assessing me. Sonia Petrova. He spoke my name as if asserting ownership. Punctual. I appreciate that. Good morning, Mr. Volkov, I replied, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. I'm here to service the room. A faint smile touched his lips. Are you? I thought perhaps you were here because I asked for you specifically. I remained silent, unsure how to respond. He moved to the dining table where breakfast was laid out, enough food for 4 people, not just one man. Have you eaten? The question caught me off guard. Excuse me? It's a simple question. He gestured to the chair opposite his. Have you had breakfast? That's not. I'm here to work, Mr. Volkov. And I'm asking you to join me. His tone hardened slightly. Please sit. It wasn't a request. I hesitated, then slowly moved to the table, perching on the edge of the chair as if ready to flee at any moment. He pushed a plate towards me, pastries dusted with powdered sugar, fresh fruit, and small sandwiches cut into triangles. Eat, he commanded, pouring coffee into a delicate porcelain cup. I took a small pastry, my stomach growling despite my anxiety. I hadn't eaten that morning, too nervous about this very encounter. Volkov watched me eat with unsettling intensity. Your nephew, he said abruptly. He returned home safely. I nearly choked on the pastry. Yes, he was at a friend's house. He nodded, seemingly satisfied. Children can be unpredictable. How did you know? I blurted out before I could stop myself. About Misha coming home, and how did you get my number? A slow smile spread across his face, revealing perfect white teeth. Information is easily acquired when you know who to ask. That's not an answer. No, he agreed. It isn't. He took a sip of his coffee, his eyes never leaving mine. Tell me about yourself, Sonia Petrova. I set down the pastry, my appetite gone. There's nothing to tell. I'm just a housekeeper. A Russian housekeeper who speaks like a native but works in a luxury hotel in America. He leaned forward slightly. That seems like something. We immigrated when I was 12. My parents wanted a better life. And your parents? Where are they now? The question stung as it always did. Dead. Car accident 6 years ago. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or sympathy. So you care for your sister and nephew alone? It wasn't a question. He already knew the answer. Yes. Admirable. He stood suddenly, moving to the window again. Do you know who I am, Sonia? I thought of Maria's whispered warning. I know your name is Alexi Volkov. He turned, amusement playing across his features. That tells me nothing about what you truly know. I don't know anything else, I admitted. Should I? Perhaps it's better that you don't. He approached me again, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. But you should know this. I can be either very useful or very dangerous to know. My mouth went dry. Is that a threat? An observation? He reached out suddenly, his fingers capturing a strand of hair that had escaped my bun. I froze as he tucked it behind my ear, his touch lingering a moment too long. You're wasted here, cleaning rooms for ungrateful rich tourists. I pulled back, standing up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. It's honest work. Is honesty truly so important to you? Yes, I answered without hesitation. He studied me for a long moment, as if trying to discern the truth. Interesting. Most people lie when asked that question. The conversation was veering into territory I didn't comprehend. I retreated behind professionalism. If you'll excuse me, Mr. Volkov, I should begin cleaning the suite. No. He shook his head. That won't be necessary today. Confusion washed over me. But I was sent specifically. I requested your presence, not your services as a maid. He moved to a sleek briefcase on the desk, opening it to reveal neat stacks of documents. I have a proposition for you, Sonia. Warning bells rang in my head. What kind of proposition? A job. One that pays considerably more than making beds and cleaning bathrooms. I took another step back. I'm not interested in that kind of work. His laugh was unexpected, deep and genuine. Your mind goes to dark places quickly. I'm not offering you anything illicit or degrading. His expression sobered. I need someone who speaks Russian and English with equal fluency. Someone unassuming who doesn't attract attention. For what? Translation, primarily. Documents, conversations. He gestured vaguely. I have business interests that sometimes require discretion. And why would you offer this to me? You don't know me. On the contrary, he closed the briefcase with a snap. I know a great deal about you, Sonia Petrova. I know you've been working double shifts for months to pay for your sister's nursing school. I know you live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Brighton Park. I know your visa situation is. He paused. Complicated. My blood ran cold. Our visas had expired 3 years ago when my parents died. We'd been living under the radar ever since, working jobs that paid cash or didn't scrutinize documentation too closely. How could you possibly know that? My voice was barely above a whisper. He shrugged. As I said, information is easily acquired. I backed towards the door. I should go. The job pays $5,000 a month, he said calmly. Cash. No questions asked about your immigration status. I froze, the number echoing in my head. $5,000, more than twice what I made at the hotel. Enough to pay for Anya's school. Enough for a better apartment. Enough to stop living in constant fear of deportation. What's the catch? I asked, suspicious. You work exclusively for me. You're available when I need you, which may mean unusual hours. And above all, you're discreet. What exactly would I be translating? Business documents mostly. Occasionally, you'd accompany me to meetings as an interpreter. He moved closer, his height forcing me to look up to meet his gaze. Nothing illegal, if that's your concern. I didn't believe him. Not entirely. Men like Alexi Volkov, men with money and power who operated in shadows, didn't need interpreters for legitimate business. I need to think about it, I said finally. Of course. He pulled a business card from his pocket and held it out to me. It was simple, just his name and a phone number embossed in silver on heavy black cardstock. Call me by tomorrow with your decision. I took the card reluctantly. One more thing, he added as I turned to leave. I wouldn't discuss this offer with anyone. Not your sister, not your co-workers, no one. The implied threat hung in the air between us. Why the secrecy if everything's legitimate? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Privacy and legitimacy aren't mutually exclusive, Sonia. I protect what's mine. The possessive tone in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. I nodded once and fled the suite, his card burning a hole in my pocket. The rest of my shift passed in a daze. I cleaned rooms mechanically, my mind replaying the strange encounter over and over. $5,000 a month, enough to change everything. But at what cost? By the time I clocked out, darkness had fallen over the city. I walked quickly towards the bus stop, pulling my coat tighter against the chill. The street was unusually quiet, most shops already closed for the night. The sound of footsteps behind me made me quicken my pace. When I glanced back, a man in a dark suit was following at a distance, not close enough to be threatening, but definitely trailing me. My heart raced as I ducked into a convenience store, pretending to browse the shelves while watching through the window. The man stopped outside, lighting a cigarette with practiced ease. His gaze remained fixed on the store entrance. I slipped out the back exit into an alley, breaking into a run once I was out of sight. The bus stop was still 3 blocks away. I cut through another alley, taking a detour that would hopefully lose my pursuer. When I finally reached the bus stop, I was breathing hard, looking over my shoulder every few seconds. The bus arrived mercifully quickly, and I climbed aboard, scanning the street behind me. No sign of the man in the suit. I collapsed into a seat, trembling with adrenaline and fear. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text message from an unknown number, the same one from this morning. Running away solves nothing, Sonia. My men are there for your protection, not to frighten you. The city can be dangerous at night. I stared at the screen in horror, then looked out the bus window. Across the street, a black SUV with tinted windows idled at the curb. As the bus pulled away, the SUV began to follow at a discreet distance. When I finally reached my apartment building, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the lock. Inside, Anya was at the kitchen table, textbooks spread around her as she studied. "You're late," she observed without looking up. "Bad day?" "Something like that," I managed, hanging up my coat. "There was a package delivered for you today," she said, pointing to a large box on the counter. "No return address." I was going to open it, but it has your name specifically. I approached the box cautiously. My name was printed on a simple white card attached to the black box. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a brand new iPhone, the latest model, far more expensive than anything I could ever afford, and a note written in elegant script, "For your new position. Security measures already installed. AV." Beneath the phone was a stack of cash, $100 bills bound together with a simple paper band. The band had a number written on it, 5,000. Sonia. Anya stood behind me, her eyes wide as she stared at the contents of the box. "What is that? Who sent you a new phone? And is that money?" I quickly closed the box. "It's nothing. A mistake." That didn't look like nothing. Her voice was suspicious. "What's going on?" I said it's nothing. The words came out harsher than I intended, and Anya stepped back, hurt flashing across her face. "Fine, keep your secrets." She gathered her textbooks and retreated to the bedroom we shared with Misha, closing the door firmly behind her. I sank onto the couch, the box clutched in my hands. Volkov was forcing my hand, systematically eliminating my options. The cash, the phone, the men following me. All of it sent a clear message. I was already in his world, whether I'd agreed to be or not. The new phone buzzed in the box. With trembling fingers, I pulled it out and checked the screen. "I trust the advanced payment meets with your approval. Sleep well, Sonia Petrova. Tomorrow will be eventful." I stared at the message, a sense of foreboding washing over me. Something told me Alexi Volkov wasn't a man who accepted rejection easily. I had walked into his web without realizing it. And now I was caught, a fly being watched by a very patient spider. Sleep eluded me that night. I tossed and turned beside Anya, who had forgiven me enough to share the bed but not enough to speak to me. The new phone sat on our rickety nightstand, its presence a constant reminder of the choice looming before me. Dawn broke with pale light filtering through our thin curtains. I gave up on sleep and slipped out of bed, careful not to wake my sister or Misha, who was curled up on his small mattress in the corner. In the kitchen, I made coffee and stared at the box containing the money and phone. $5,000. An advance, he'd called it. The implications were clear. He expected me to take the job, he'd already decided for me. The presumption should have angered me, but instead, I felt a strange mixture of fear and something else I couldn't quite name. Curiosity, perhaps, or the dangerous thrill of being noticed by someone so powerful. My old phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Reynolds. "Don't come in today. Your position is being reconsidered following a complaint." My stomach dropped. A complaint, or Volkov's influence. Either way, the message was clear. My job at the Sovereign was hanging by a thread, another option systematically removed. The new iPhone chimed next, as if responding to my thoughts. "Good morning, Sonia. Car waiting outside in 30 minutes to bring you to my office, dressed professionally. No signature needed, no option to refuse, just a command issued with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed." I moved to the window and peered through the curtains. Sure enough, a black sedan was already parked across the street, a driver in a dark suit leaning against it, smoking a cigarette. My hands shook as I dressed in my nicest outfit, a simple black skirt and white blouse I'd worn to my parents' funeral. I left a note for Anya saying I had a job interview, which wasn't entirely a lie. After a moment's hesitation, I took the money from the box, but left the new phone behind. Small rebellions were all I had left. The driver straightened as I emerged from the building, dropping his cigarette and grinding it under his heel. "Miss Petrova," he greeted me with a slight Russian accent, opening the rear door. "Mr. Volkov is expecting you." The interior of the car was luxurious, soft leather seats and tinted windows that sealed me off from the outside world. As we pulled away from the curb, I noticed another black SUV falling into place behind us, an escort, or a way to ensure I didn't change my mind and run. We drove into the heart of downtown, eventually pulling up to a sleek glass skyscraper I'd passed many times but never entered. The driver opened my door and led me through a private entrance to an elevator that required a key card to operate. "Mr. Volkov's office is on the top floor," he said, scanning his card and pressing the button marked P. "He'll meet you there." The elevator ascended swiftly, my stomach dropping with the rapid rise. When the doors opened, I stepped into what looked like another world, a space of polished marble, dark wood, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. A woman sat at a reception desk, her platinum blonde hair pulled into a severe bun. She barely glanced at me. "He's waiting for you in the main office, last door on the right." The corridor was lined with abstract artwork that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. My footsteps were silent on the plush carpet as I approached the door she'd indicated. I knocked, my heart thundering in my chest. "Enter." The familiar command. Alexi Volkov's office was minimalist and imposing, a massive desk of dark wood, more panoramic windows, and very little else. He stood with his back to the door, gazing out at the city sprawled below, hands clasped behind him. Unlike at the hotel, he wore no suit jacket, just an impeccably tailored white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing strong forearms dusted with dark hair. A shoulder holster holding a gun was clearly visible against his shirt. The sight of the weapon made me freeze in the doorway. He turned, those penetrating eyes finding mine immediately. "Close the door, Sonia." I did, feeling the soft click of the latch like a prison cell closing. "You didn't bring the phone," he observed, his gaze drifting to my empty hands. "No." I lifted my chin slightly, clinging to this small defiance. "I haven't accepted your offer yet." A smile played at the corners of his mouth. Yet an interesting choice of word. He moved to his desk, gesturing for me to take one of the chairs opposite. Only when I was seated did he continue. "Your employment at the Sovereign has been terminated." He stated it as a fact, not a question. "Because of you. Because it was beneath you." He sat on the edge of his desk rather than behind it, looming over me. "You're intelligent, bilingual, and adaptable, wasted on changing sheets and scrubbing toilets." "It was honest work," I countered. "Was it? A luxury hotel catering to the corrupt elite, charging thousands per night while paying you barely minimum wage?" His voice carried a hint of disdain. "There's no honesty in that system, Sonia." I had no response. He wasn't entirely wrong. "The money," he continued. "You took it." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Yes." "Why?" The question caught me off guard. "Because I need it," I admitted. "My sister's tuition is due next week." He nodded as though I'd confirmed something he already knew. "Necessity makes choices simpler, doesn't it?" Quote, before I could respond, the door opened without a knock. A tall man with a face like carved stone entered, whispered something in Volkov's ear, then left as silently as he'd appeared. Volkov's expression darkened momentarily. "It seems we have a situation that requires attention." He stood, reaching for his suit jacket hung neatly over a nearby chair. "Consider it your first assignment." "I haven't agreed to work for you," I reminded him. "Yet you're here in my office, having accepted my money." He shrugged on his jacket, the movement smooth and practiced. "Actions speak louder than words, Sonia Petrova." He was right, and we both knew it. I'd already made my choice the moment I stepped into that car. "What's the situation?" I asked, resignation in my voice. A misunderstanding with some former associates. Russian speakers who might respond better to a woman's touch. He adjusted his cuffs. Nothing dangerous. You'll simply translate and soften my message. Something in his tone told me it was far from simple. But what choice did I have? My job was gone, the money already mentally spent on Anya's tuition, and Vyulov had made it clear he wasn't a man who took no for an answer. He led me back to the elevator, and we descended in silence. The same car waited outside, but this time Vyulov joined me in the back seat. Where are we going? I asked as the driver pulled smoothly into traffic. To meet an old friend who's forgotten his manners. Vyulov's gaze remained fixed on the passing cityscape. Yuri Baranov, the name means anything to you? I shook my head. Good. It shouldn't. He turned those penetrating eyes on me. Baranov runs a shipping company. Legitimate on paper, but he sometimes moves packages that customs wouldn't approve of. My pulse quickened. Illegal goods. The legality of goods depends entirely on who's defining the law, wouldn't you say? He smiled, but the expression didn't reach his eyes. Baranov has been withholding certain payments. Today, he'll rectify that oversight. The car turned into the industrial district near the docks, an area I'd never had reason to visit. Warehouses loomed on either side of potholed streets, the smell of the harbor, fishy and metallic, drifting through the air conditioning. We stopped outside a nondescript building, distinguished only by the heavy security presence. Men in dark clothes watched our approach, hands inside jackets, no doubt resting on weapons. Stay close to me, Vyulov instructed as we exited the car. Speak only when I tell you to. Translate exactly what I say. No more and no less. I nodded, fear tightening my throat as we approached the warehouse entrance. Two men stepped forward to meet us, their expressions hostile until they recognized Vyulov. Even then, their eyes remained wary. Alexi Ivanovich, one greeted him in Russian, his tone cautious. We weren't expecting you personally. Clearly, Vyulov replied in the same language, his voice cold, or you might have prepared a proper welcome. Where is Yuri? The man gestured inside, waiting in his office. As we moved to enter, one of the guards stepped into my path. Who's the girl? He asked in Russian, his eyes raking over me assessingly. Vyulov's hand settled on the small of my back, the touch both protective and possessive. She's with me. That's all you need to know. The interior of the warehouse was divided between stacked shipping containers and a makeshift office constructed of prefabricated walls. Vyulov guided me towards the office, his hand never leaving my back. Inside, a heavy-set man with a shaved head sat behind a cluttered desk. He looked up as we entered, surprise flashing across his features before he masked it with a jovial smile. Alex, what an unexpected pleasure, he exclaimed in Russian, rising to his feet. His eyes flicked to me with undisguised curiosity. And who is your lovely companion? My interpreter, Vyulov replied in English. Sonia, tell Mr. Baranov I'm here about the delayed payment. I translated, keeping my voice steady despite the tension crackling in the room. Baranov's smile faltered. He responded in rapid Russian, something about unexpected customs delays and temporary cash flow problems. I translated for Vyulov, who listened with an impassive expression. Tell him, Vyulov said calmly, that his excuses are as thin as his loyalty. He has until tomorrow noon to deliver the full amount, plus an additional 20% for my inconvenience. I relayed the message, watching Baranov's face darken. That's impossible, he sputtered in Russian. I can't possibly. Vyulov cut him off with a raised hand, understanding the protest without my translation. He reached inside his jacket and withdrew not a gun, as I'd feared, but a phone. He tapped the screen a few times, then turned it to show Baranov. The color drained from the man's face as he stared at whatever was displayed on the screen. Tell him, Vyulov continued, his voice dangerously soft, that his wife's garden party tomorrow looks lovely. The children have grown so much since I last saw them. My hands trembled as I translated, understanding the implicit threat. Baranov's eyes widened in panic. You wouldn't, he whispered in Russian. We've known each other for years. Vyulov smiled thinly. Tell him that's precisely why I've been so patient. But my patience has limits. As I translated, Baranov's resistance crumbled visibly. The money will be delivered tomorrow morning, he said in halting English, looking directly at Vyulov. All of it. Excellent. Vyulov slipped his phone back into his pocket. I knew we could reach an understanding. The drive back to the city center passed in intense silence. I stared out the window, processing what had just happened, the casual threat against a man's family, the immediate capitulation, the glimpse into a world where power was measured in fear. You're quiet, Vyulov observed as we neared downtown. You threatened his children, I said softly. Did I? He raised an eyebrow. I merely commented on their growth. Any threat was in Baranov's guilty conscience. We both know what you meant. Vyulov studied me for a long moment. Would you prefer I'd used violence instead? Perhaps had my men break his fingers until he agreed to pay? I flinched at the imagery. Of course not. Then understand this, Sonia. In my world, implied threats save blood. Baranov will pay. His family remains safe, and no one gets hurt. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. The alternative is far messier. The car stopped in front of an upscale restaurant in the financial district, the kind of place I'd only glimpsed through windows, never imagining I'd enter. I'm not dressed for this, I said, glancing down at my simple outfit. It doesn't matter, Vyulov replied, already exiting the car. The owner is an old friend. That seemed to be a pattern with him. Connections everywhere, friends in high places who bent rules at his approach. The Maître d' greeted Vyulov with a deference that bordered on fear, leading us immediately to a private dining room in the back, separated from the main restaurant by frosted glass doors. I imagine you have questions, Vyulov said once we were seated, a bottle of wine already open and breathing between us. He poured a glass and pushed it towards me. I left it untouched. What exactly happened back there with Baranov? Business. He sipped his own wine. Nothing more complicated than ensuring agreements are honored. By threatening someone's family? His eyes hardened slightly. By reminding him of the consequences of dishonesty. Baranov knew the terms when he accepted my investment. Investment in what? I pressed, emboldened by the morning's events. Vyulov studied me, seeming to weigh his response. Import-export, primarily. My interests are diverse. Illegal imports, I clarified. A faint smile touched his lips. In some jurisdictions, perhaps. The world isn't as black and white as you imagine, Sonia. A server arrived with food we hadn't ordered, delicacies arranged artfully on fine china. Vyulov thanked him in flawless Italian, another reminder of the worldliness that separated us. Eat, he commanded when we were alone again. You need your strength. I picked up a fork, more to avoid argument than from hunger. Why me? There must be dozens of professional translators you could hire. Professional translators come with professional curiosity, he replied. They ask questions, form connections, talk to colleagues. You're isolated. No network beyond your sister, no professional alliances. He leaned forward slightly. And you need me far more than I need you. The blunt assessment stung because it was true. I was replaceable to him, he was a lifeline to me. Is that why you had me fired from the Sovereign? To make me more dependent on you? He didn't deny it. I eliminated a distraction. Your focus should be singular now. On you. The words came out more breathlessly than I intended. His eyes darkened. On your new position. Your loyalty is to me alone. Something in his tone sent a shiver down my spine, a mixture of fear and something more complicated. There was an intensity to his attention that made me feel both trapped and oddly exhilarated. And if I refused? I asked, though we both knew it was a hypothetical question at this point. You won't. His confidence was absolute. Not just because of the money, though that's significant. You're curious, Sonia, about me, about my world, about how far into the shadows you can step before losing yourself. The assessment was uncomfortably accurate. Despite my fear, there was an undeniable pull towards the danger he represented, a fascination with power I'd never possessed. The rest of lunch passed in tense silence. Afterward, Vyulov instructed his driver to take me home, claiming business that required his attention. The separation came as both relief and disappointment. When I entered our apartment, I found Anya pacing nervously in the living room, her face pale with worry. "Sonia." She rushed to embrace me. "Thank God you're back," I thought. She trailed off, pulling back to search my face. "Where have you been?" "There are men outside our building. Men with guns. I saw them when I came back from class." My blood ran cold. "What men? What did they look like?" "Big, scary suits. They've been watching the building all day." Her voice trembled. When I tried to ask what they wanted, one of them just said they were security and told me to go inside. "What's happening? Is this connected to that package you got?" Before I could answer, my new phone, the one I'd deliberately left behind, buzzed on the coffee table. Anya had apparently moved it there. I picked it up hesitantly. "The security detail is for your protection. Recent developments make it necessary. Do not leave the apartment tonight, Sonia." Anya's voice was barely above a whisper now. "What have you gotten involved in?" I sank onto the couch, the weight of my new reality crushing down on me. "It's complicated." "Complicated?" She snatched the phone from my hands, reading the message with widening eyes. "This is from him, isn't it? The man who sent the money?" Her expression hardened. "What did you do? What kind of job did you take?" "Translation," I said weakly. "Just translation. Don't lie to me." Her voice rose. "No translation job comes with armed guards and mysterious warnings." Just then, Misha burst in from his bedroom, excitement lighting up his small face. "Auntie Sonia, have you seen the cool cars outside? Big black ones, like in spy movies." Anya and I exchanged alarmed glances. She recovered first, forcing a smile. "Misha, why don't you go play in your room for a bit? The grown-ups need to talk." Once he'd reluctantly retreated, Anya rounded on me again. "You need to tell me the truth now." I took a deep breath, weighing how much to reveal. "I'm working for someone important, someone powerful. The security is a precaution." "Who? What's his name?" "Alexi Volkov." The name felt dangerous just to speak aloud. Anya's face paled further. "The Alexi Volkov? The one they call the ghost?" I stared at her in surprise. "You know who he is?" She sank down beside me, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Everyone in the Russian community knows that name, Sonia. He's not just powerful, he's dangerous. There are stories." "What stories?" I demanded, a chill settling in my stomach. She shook her head. "Nothing specific, just whispers. People who cross him disappear. Businesses that refuse his protection suffer accidents." She grabbed my hands. "Sonia, what have you done? These aren't the kind of people we want in our lives." "I didn't have a choice," I replied, the excuse sounding hollow even to my own ears. "He arranged for me to be fired from the sovereign. And we need the money, Anya, for your school, for Misha." "Not like this." Her eyes filled with tears. "Nothing is worth this kind of danger." Before I could respond, the apartment door burst open. 2 men in suits entered, guns drawn. Anya screamed, pulling me behind her in a protective gesture that broke my heart. "Miss Petrova." One of the men addressed me in accented English. "You need to come with us immediately." "Why? What's happening?" I demanded, fear making my voice shake. "Security breach," he replied cryptically. "Mr. Volkov's orders are to move you to a secure location." "I'm not going anywhere without my sister and nephew," I insisted, clinging to Anya's hand. The man hesitated, then spoke rapidly into a communication device on his wrist. After a brief exchange, he nodded. "Fine, all of you. Quickly, bring only essentials." "What about Misha?" Anya protested. "He's just a child." "Especially the boy," the man replied grimly. "Hurry." Within minutes, we were bustled into the back of a sleek SUV, Misha clutching his favorite stuffed bear, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. 2 more identical vehicles flanked us as we pulled away from our apartment building. "Where are you taking us?" I demanded. "One of Mr. Volkov's properties," the driver replied. "You'll be safe there." We drove for nearly an hour, eventually turning onto a private road that wound through dense trees. A massive gate appeared, opening silently as our convoy approached. Beyond it stood a modern fortress disguised as a luxury estate, a sprawling mansion of glass and stone, surrounded by high walls and patrolled by more men in suits. The cars stopped at the front entrance where Alexi Volkov himself waited, his expression grim. He opened my door personally, helping me out with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the tension radiating from him. "Are you all right?" he asked, his eyes scanning me for injury. "What's happening?" I countered. "Why did your men drag us from our home?" His jaw tightened. Baronov's response to our conversation was less than professional. "He made inquiries about you, detailed ones." Cold fear washed over me. "What kind of inquiries?" "The kind that suggested he might try to use you as leverage." Vulov's hand moved to the small of my back, guiding me towards the house. His eyes shifted to Anya and Misha, who were being helped from the car. "I apologize for the disruption to your family. It's a temporary precaution." Anya glared at him as she approached, Misha's hand clutched tightly in hers. "You're the one who's put my sister in danger," she accused in Russian. Volkov responded in the same language, his tone respectful but firm. "On the contrary, I'm the one protecting her from it." He led us into the mansion through a soaring foyer with a crystal chandelier that cast prismatic light across marble floors. A woman in a simple black dress appeared, introducing herself as Mrs. Katia, the housekeeper. "I've prepared rooms for everyone," she said in heavily accented English. "The young man's has a view of the pool." She smiled kindly at Misha, who was staring around in awe. "A pool," he exclaimed, his fear momentarily forgotten. "Can I swim in it?" "Tomorrow, perhaps," Volkov replied, crouching to Misha's level. "Tonight, you should rest. It's been an exciting day, hasn't it?" Misha nodded solemnly, studying Volkov with a child's direct curiosity. "Are you a spy?" he asked. "Like in the movies?" A genuine smile softened Volkov's features. "No, not a spy. Just a businessman who sometimes has to be very careful. Because of bad guys." Something dark flickered in Volkov's eyes. "Yes, because of bad guys." Mrs. Katia led Anya and Misha upstairs to settle in, leaving me alone with Volkov in the vast entryway. "How long do we need to stay here?" I asked. "Until I'm confident you're safe," he replied. "Baronov's indiscretion will be dealt with by morning." I didn't want to contemplate what dealt with meant. Instead, I asked, why would he target me? "I was just your translator." Volkov's gaze was penetrating. "Because he observed how I look at you. He saw a weakness he could exploit." My pulse quickened at his words, at the implication that I mattered to him beyond my utility as a translator. "I'm not your weakness," I said softly. He stepped closer, his hand rising to cup my cheek. "Perhaps not yet, but you could be." His thumb traced my jawline with surprising gentleness. "And I protect what's mine, Sonia. Remember that." Morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains when I woke. For a moment, I was disoriented. The silken sheets and vast bedroom foreign to my senses. Then memory flooded back, the hasty evacuation, Volkov's mansion, the veiled threat against a man who had apparently threatened me. I rose and moved to the window, pulling back heavy drapes to reveal a sweeping view of manicured grounds surrounded by dense forest. Men in dark clothing patrolled the perimeter, their movements precise and vigilant. A gilded cage, I thought, pressing my palm against the cool glass. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Mrs. Katia entered carrying a tray with coffee and pastries. "Mr. Volkov requests your presence in his study once you're dressed," she said, setting down the tray. "He said the matter is urgent." "Where are my sister and nephew?" I asked, accepting the cup of coffee she offered. "The boy is swimming with one of the security staff supervising." "Your sister is with him." Mrs. Katia's expression softened slightly. "They are safe, Miss Petrova. This house is the most secure place in the region." That wasn't as comforting as she intended. I thanked her, and once alone, dressed quickly in clothes that had mysteriously appeared in the closet overnight, all in my size, all more expensive than anything I'd ever owned. The mansion was a labyrinth of corridors and grand rooms. A guard stationed outside my door directed me to Vulov's study, his expression carefully neutral as he watched me descend the curved staircase. The study door was ajar when I arrived. I knocked lightly before entering a room that seemed designed to intimidate, dark wood paneling, walls lined with books in multiple languages, and a massive desk where Alexi Volkov sat reviewing documents. He looked up as I entered, fatigue evident in the shadows beneath his eyes. "Sonia, thank you for coming. Did I have a choice?" I asked, remaining near the door. A hint of a smile touched his lips. "We always have choices. Some are simply more difficult than others." He gestured to a chair opposite his desk. "Please sit. We need to discuss Baranov." The name sent a chill through me. I sat, hands folded tightly in my lap. "What about him?" "The situation has been resolved." Vulov's voice was clinical, detached. "Baranov made a significant error in judgment. He won't make another." I swallowed hard. "Did you kill him?" Vulov's expression remained impassive. "Would it matter to you if I had?" "Of course it would." I leaned forward, anger momentarily overcoming fear. "I don't want someone's death on my conscience." "It wouldn't be on your conscience. It would be on mine." He studied me with those penetrating eyes. "But to answer your question, no. Baranov is very much alive, though considerably less comfortable than he was yesterday. He's been removed from his position and will be returning to Moscow, where his family connections will protect him from more permanent consequences." Relief washed over me, though I wasn't entirely convinced he was telling the truth. "The payment he owed has been transferred in full with the additional percentage we discussed." Volkov closed the folder before him. But his actions revealed a vulnerability that needs to be addressed. "Me?" I said quietly. He nodded. "You. As long as you live in that apartment, as long as your movements are predictable and unprotected, you represent a potential point of leverage against me." "I'm nothing to you," I protested. "Just an employee." "If that were true," he replied evenly, "you wouldn't be sitting in my home right now. I don't bring just employees into my personal sanctuary." He rose, moving to a sideboard to pour himself a glass of water. "I don't typically involve myself directly in collection matters like Baranov's. I certainly don't personally threaten associates who fall behind in payments." "Then why did you?" He turned to face me, his expression unreadable. "Because I wanted you to see, to understand the world you're now part of." "And if I want no part of it?" I asked, though we both knew it was far too late for that question. "As I said, we always have choices." He approached, setting his glass on the desk. "I could arrange for you, your sister, and your nephew to disappear. New identities, a new city far from here, enough money to start over." He paused. "But I would prefer you stay." The offer hung between us, tantalizing in its simplicity, freedom, safety, a clean break. Yet something in his eyes told me it came with a cost he wasn't voicing. "Why?" I asked, needing to hear him say it. Volkov moved closer until he stood directly before me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "Because in all my years in this business, no one has looked at me the way you do, with fear, yes, but without the hatred or fawning submission I've grown accustomed to." His voice dropped lower. "You see me clearly, Sonia Petrova. That's rarer than you might imagine." My heart raced as he reached down, his fingers gently tilting my chin upward. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, leaning closer. "And I will." I should have told him to stop, should have pushed him away, demanded that new identity and freedom he'd offered. Instead, I remained still as his lips met mine in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened into something hungry, almost desperate. His hands framed my face, as though I were something precious and fragile. Mine found their way to his shoulders, feeling the strength coiled beneath expensive fabric. For a moment, the world narrowed to just this: the taste of him, the scent of his cologne, the surprising softness of his mouth against mine. When he finally pulled away, his eyes had darkened to near black. "Stay," he said, the word somewhere between command and plea. Before I could answer, the study door burst open. One of his security men stood there, his expression grim. "Sir, we have a situation at the gate." Multiple vehicles, armed men. They're demanding to speak with you. Vulov's demeanor transformed instantly, warmth vanishing beneath a mask of cold calculation. How many? At least 20 that we can see. Police credentials, but... The man hesitated. Not actual police. Vulov finished for him. He turned to me, all tenderness gone. Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Open it for no one but me. What's happening? Fear clawed at my throat. Baranov has friends in inconvenient places. He moved to a painting on the wall, swinging it aside to reveal a safe. After entering a combination, he withdrew a handgun. This is merely a negotiation tactic. Nothing to concern yourself with. The casual way he checked the weapon suggested a familiarity that sent shivers down my spine. This was the reality of his world, violence and power so intertwined they were indistinguishable. My sister and Misha, I began, are being moved to the secure room in the East Wing. He tucked the gun into his holster. They'll be safe. He crossed to where I still sat, frozen with fear, and pressed a swift, hard kiss to my forehead. Lock the door, he repeated, then was gone. I moved to the window instead, drawn by the sound of vehicles approaching. 3 black SUVs had stopped at the main gate, where Vulov's security had formed a defensive line. Men in tactical gear spilled from the vehicles, weapons at ready, though not yet aimed. A 4th car arrived, an expensive sedan that stopped behind the SUVs. From it emerged a lean man in an impeccable suit, silver hair gleaming in the morning sun. Even from a distance, something about him radiated authority. Vulov appeared at the gate, flanked by his own men. The silver-haired man approached alone, stopping a few feet from Vulov. Though I couldn't hear their exchange, the tension was visible in their postures, 2 predators circling, assessing weaknesses. I jumped at a soft knock on the study door. Miss Petrova, Mrs. Katya's voice called. Mr. Vulov said to bring you to the others. When I opened the door, her kind face was tight with worry. Quickly, she urged. The situation outside is unpredictable. She led me through a maze of corridors to what appeared to be a panic room, reinforced steel door, no windows, surveillance monitors showing different areas of the property. Anya sat on a plush sofa, Misha curled against her side. Sonia. Anya jumped up, embracing me fiercely. What's happening? They wouldn't tell us anything. It's complicated, I said, the understatement almost making me laugh hysterically. Some kind of business dispute with men carrying guns? Anya hissed, keeping her voice low so Misha wouldn't hear. This isn't a business, Sonia. It's something much worse. I couldn't argue. Instead, I turned my attention to the monitors, watching as the confrontation at the gate continued. More words were exchanged between Vulov and the silver-haired man. Then, unexpectedly, Vulov gestured towards the house. The man nodded, and both began walking towards the main entrance, leaving their respective security forces watching each other wearily at the gate. Who is that? I asked Mrs. Katya, pointing to the silver-haired man. Her expression tightened. Viktor Petrov. He and Mr. Vulov have history. What kind of history? She hesitated. It's not my place to say. On the monitors, Vulov led Petrov into the house to what looked like a formal living room. They sat opposite each other, no weapons visible, though I was certain both were armed. Can we hear what they're saying? I asked. Mrs. Katya looked scandalized. Of course not. Mr. Vulov's privacy. They're discussing me, aren't they? I interrupted. This is about me somehow. Her silence was confirmation enough. Hours passed in intense waiting. Misha eventually fell asleep, exhausted by the morning's excitement. Anya remained vigilant beside him, her eyes occasionally meeting mine with silent accusations. Finally, the panic room door opened. Vulov stood there, his expression impossible to read. It's over, he said simply. You can come out now. What happened? I asked as I followed him into the corridor, leaving Anya and Misha with Mrs. Katya. Petrov and I reached an understanding. He guided me back towards the study. Baranov works for him, or did. Apparently, my former associate went crying to Petrov after our meeting, spinning tales about how I'd threatened his family. You did threaten his family, I pointed out. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. A matter of interpretation. Regardless, Petrov came to assess the situation with armed men, a precaution, nothing more. We reached the study, and he closed the door behind us. Petrov and I have known each other for many years. We were able to resolve things amicably, just like that. I didn't believe it for a second. Volkov moved to pour himself a drink. Not quite. Concessions were made. Territory adjusted. What kind of concessions? He turned to face me, swirling amber liquid in a crystal glass. Nothing that concerns you. It does concern me if it's about me, I insisted. He sighed, setting down his untouched drink. Petrov was curious about my sudden interest in a hotel maid. He wondered if perhaps you were more significant than a mere employee. My breath caught. And what did you tell him? Volkov approached slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. I told him the truth, that you are under my protection, that anyone who threatens you answers to me directly. Why would you do that? I whispered. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Because it's true. I'm not yours to protect, I said, though the words lacked conviction. Aren't you? His fingers trailed down my cheek to rest at the pulse point in my neck. Your heart says otherwise. He was right. Despite everything, the danger, the violence, the glimpses of a world built on threats and power, I was drawn to him in ways I couldn't explain or resist. What happens now? I asked. Now, he said, you make your choice. The new identities and fresh start I offered earlier, or... He left the alternative unspoken. Or you. I finished for him. Your world, your protection, your bed. He didn't deny it. I won't pretend it would be easy. Men like Petrov will always exist. There will always be threats. But with me, you would never want for anything again. Your sister would finish her schooling. Your nephew would have opportunities beyond anything you could provide alone. A gilded cage is still a cage, I said softly. True. His hands came to rest on my shoulders. But some cages are more comfortable than others. And some, his voice dropped lower, some don't feel like cages at all when the door is willingly closed. Quote, in that moment, looking into his eyes, I knew my decision had been made long before he asked. Perhaps from the first moment in the hotel suite when he'd commanded me to answer my phone. Some part of me had recognized even then that my life was about to change irreversibly. I stay, I said simply. We all stay. Relief flickered across his features, quickly masked. You won't regret it, he promised, pulling me against him. 6 months later, I stood at a different window in a different house, a seaside villa where the Mediterranean stretched blue and endless before me. Anya had graduated nursing school and worked at a private clinic Alex owned. Misha attended an exclusive international school, his Russian and English now supplemented with Italian and French. And I had become more than a translator. I was Alex Volkov's confidant, his partner in a world that remained dangerous but no longer frightening. The men who once followed me as security now answered to my commands as well as his. The whispered name that had once terrified me, Ghost, I now spoke with affection in private moments. Love had grown between us, complex and sometimes difficult, but undeniably real. His possessiveness remained, his jealousy occasionally flaring when other men looked too long in my direction. But I had found my own power in his world, not through violence or threats, but through the influence I held over a man feared, but few truly knew. That morning in the hotel, answering a call in Russian had led me down a path I could never have imagined. 100 men had indeed surrounded my house the next day, but not as enemies, as protectors sent by a man who had claimed me as his own before I even understood what that meant. As I watched the waves break against the shore, strong arms encircled my waist from behind. Alex's lips brushed my neck, his voice a warm murmur against my skin. Any regrets? He asked, a question he still posed occasionally, as though waiting for me to finally come to my senses. I turned in his embrace, rising on tiptoes to kiss him properly. None, I answered truthfully. Some cages don't feel like cages.